Hi, my name is Dr. Erin Danielle with rejuvenate-life.com. It's important what you do with your dash. Today I've got a subject that I kind of want to, it's hard for me to discuss. It's hard to discuss because I go to a lot of different sporting events with my kids. My son does Taekwondo. Usually I do Taekwondo with him. My shoulder is still healing, so I'm not doing that right now. And my daughter plays basketball. So we go to a lot of games, lots and lots of basketball games, like 2 to 3 per weekend, every weekend from November through February, and then school ball and all this. So I'm sitting in the stands and I'm being entertaining to the people around me as usual because there's facial expressions and other things. So the friends of mine that are sitting next to me are just watching my reactions because I'm like, no, don't, no. What are you doing? So there's a lot of those things because it's like nerve-wracking for me when the girls are learning and don't know how to play. And I'm like, okay, this is not like a wrestling match on the floor. This is not like a slapping fit. This is supposed to be basketball. But anyway, bringing myself to a harder topic to discuss. I am so sick of our society in the sense that we are constantly teaching other people to devalue their worthiness. And how does this relate to basketball? Well, I'm listening to parents, and there's some girls that are, a little bit on the larger side, and based on body morphology, as a doctor, I'm going, maybe she has PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which makes it very easy to put on weight. It is a hormone imbalance and different things like that. And so I look at I look at someone and I go, what's going on with them? Either diet, exercise, something metabolic going on. So likely a metabolic condition based on, the doctor sense that goes off. But I'm listening to parents, and parents either on the girls' same team, and they're, just shouting things like, oh, ain't nobody gonna get the ball away from her. That's so funny, and at the same time, then as that girl almost topples onto another girl, like, watch out, tower incoming. You are making fun of the same thing you just praised that child for. What are you doing? She's a child. There's no reason for that. You can say something about a player's attitude or what have you, but like these kids who are doing athletics, they are doing this at an arena that is so much larger than what we used to do athletic competitions at, and the parents and the fans and the students and everybody else put so much pressure on these kids to be perfect, and we're not perfect, okay, but we're teaching these children to put worthiness on something that has no merit. Okay, whether or not you're a few pounds overweight, whether or not you're a few pounds too skinny, whether or not you're limping, whether or not you're what have you, that doesn't take away from your inherent value of who you are as a person. And if we want our children to have good and meaningful relationships when they get older, if we want our children to break generational traumas, if we want our children to have their children grow up in a world that's not so cruel, then we gotta start teaching children to value themselves, okay? In some respects, I was that girl. I mean, I'm my same size that I was in 7th grade. Fortunately, I weighed what I did in high school. I have my body morphology changed a bit. So I always was kind of like the bigger, heavier kid, not necessarily by today's standards, but by then, those standards. So I embraced my toughness. But as I embraced my toughness, I also created that as part of my identity. Right? Like that doesn't, your physical aptitudes don't have to become like who you are. I mean, they will, but now years later, right? Because of all of it, I got ingrained into me that I had value because of my strength, right? Like, and so these kids, I feel it for them, like having that ingrained in them because that was a strength. So now, after having joint sepsis and shoulder surgery and all of that, there's still a part of me, right, that needs healing to not have strength as my identity. Okay, so Why are we doing this to kids? What is so unhealed in ourselves that we are perpetuating this to kids? And I get it. Like, I get a little excited during games. I'm like, traveling, like I'm sitting there making calls with the refs. Okay. So sometimes I have to put myself back in check, right? Like, I have a tendency to be more vocal. And those of you who know me and who have heard me and who maybe I have coached, that you can hear me from across the room. I do not need a microphone. So, point being, can we take a step back? Can we look at what's going on in ourselves and stop perpetuating that we're not valued? This is how we create codependent relationships. This is how all of these things start. And it's part of the overall health, right? Everything is mind, body, and spirit. It's not just the physical. So as a chiropractor, I see what these patterns do physically in people's bodies. It can represent differently. But ultimately, these hurts and these wounds are going to prevent a person's physical body from healing as well as it could. So as we're parents and stands, okay, these kids are just trying to have fun, right? Like, we're learning team building skills. We're learning different ways to communicate with our teammates. We're learning interactions. We've got other goals besides just a win. We also can be compassionate towards that child. And, sometimes physical appearance, there's nothing we can do to change it, nor should we need to feel the need to, right? I mean, you see, this is my face, right? There's no makeup on this face. Sometimes I put makeup on, sometimes I don't, okay? For me, it was never a high value that I placed on what I physically looked like. Now, when someone tells me, oh, you're beautiful, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. However, what the F can I do about it otherwise? And what does somebody else's opinion of my face really matter when it comes to anything? I mean, yes, we have things like makeup, but why can't we enhance what we're naturally given instead of just focusing on, the pretty face? Okay, now is there, and if somebody doesn't agree with that, that's fine. I don't care. It's just an example. It's just an example, okay? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But why can't you say, wow, you are so thoughtful? Or, wow, you are so kind and generous. And wow, you really stand up for your own boundaries. I'm really impressed with that. There are so many other things we could talk about, but especially with girls, right? Like, especially girls sports and and girl anything, right? Female anything. We're constantly being attacked for our looks. She's too skinny. She's too fat. She's too this. She's too that. Stop. Stop creating these patterns of unworthiness. Then it affects the whole lives of the people, and I understand it's our job to filter that out. At the growing teenage years, that's a really hard thing to filter. Okay. And some of those comments are going to last for a lifetime. Okay. We still have to learn how to heal through those. Okay. But we could be nicer. So I get frustrated, right? Because if someone's too pretty, well, she couldn't possibly be smart. If she's too smart, well, she can't possibly be pretty. If she's too skinny or she's too, like I said, it's just, there's these unrealistic expectations, but then it clouds what we tolerate in our lives. And I would much rather teach my children to have requirements for how they're going to be treated by their friends, by their family, by, their significant other. That significant other is huge in their life. As far as what it does to people's careers, what it does to their happiness levels, what it does to their finances, all of these things. So let's stop. We can comment on, hey, that was an awesome rebound. You are so strong, fantastic, but leave anything else out, right? So thoughts, opinions, comments, are welcomed, because it's hard. It's hard for me because I see so many people being really just brought down. And it's hard when you're in an event to do things perfectly. None of us do things perfectly. None of us do things perfectly ever, right? And that we're not supposed to. We're perfectly imperfect. So I know this was a long video today, but just a real topic that as parents and stands, it's not appropriate. I don't want to start a fight. I don't want to start a fight in basketball in the middle of the stands, but I would like to draw attention to it. Now, if there was anything overtly going on where someone was really harassing a kid, I would say something. So trust me, like I am that parent that would go, back off. Like, she made a mistake, leave her alone. I am that person. Nothing that I heard broached on something that, definitely required, someone to stand in. However, I'm asking people to think about what we're saying. It's just a game, right? And even for myself, it's just a game. Like, I have to remind myself, okay, breathe. They don't know what they're doing. I'm like, lots of faces, because I'm trying to remind myself, I'm like, it's not the mistakes. It's just like, okay, let's teach them the game. Let's make this more of an instructional game. Like, make it a practice game. Like, it's still a game, but like, remind them of what the rules are and help them out, because they're obviously struggling. So, like, let's help them instead of punish them. But anyway, I'm Dr. Erin Danielle with rejuvenate-life.com. It's important what you do with your dash.